Ready when you guys are. Okay, mic on?
I don't know.
Thank you. Really. And everybody hears okay? All right, great. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us on a rainy Wednesday. We're going to switch things up a little bit here, but first we will always start with, of course, roll call. And then we're going to go into a couple of votes. And the reason I said we're going to switch things up is we're going to do public comment today at the beginning versus the end, just because we have a lot to get through today, and we do want to prioritize the community conversation. And then we're going to go into our discussion, like I just mentioned. So we're looking forward to all we have to talk through today. Specifically, the topic today is district strategic plans and the process, and how we, the community, can make that better. We're also really excited to join command staff from the 19th district later on for a quick Q&A. So roll call, Sam Schoenberg.
Present.
Jenny Schaefer.
Here.
Marilio Garcia is present. We're going to go ahead and move into the votes. So for votes specifically, we have two items on the list. We have literature on district council for distribution up to $1,000, and then giveaways and activity materials for community fairs and meetings up to $50. So we're going to first start on the first line item. So do I have a motion for votes for literature on district council for distribution?
Yeah, second that motion.
I gotta make
just
the
motion.
And I will second it. Any proposed adjustments or context for the first line item?
Yeah, just to give a little context about these, we are excited that we have like a whole schedule of different community events to be showing up at, mostly farmers markets around Uptown and North Center and around the community. So we want to make sure that we have like professional looking literature to pass out for individuals, and also just the second line item to give it away ahead of time is just to have little giveaways there to share with people at the fair. So, but it's exciting as a way, the more people that know about the work, the more people we have with us doing this, the more impact we'll have. So we're excited to use it as a way to get out in front of more of the community.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and vote on the first line item, literature on district councils for distribution up to $1,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We've got the community in there too. That's great. Okay, motion for the second. Do I have a motion for giveaways on activity materials for community meetings?
I move to spend up to $50 on giveaways and activity materials for community fairs and meetings.
You did that better than me.
And I will second. So all in favor of giveaways and activity materials for community fairs and meetings up to $50, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it for those line items. So we will be budgeting that expenditures accordingly. Great. Okay, so I have too many screens here to deal with, so apologies here. Like I said, we're going to move public comments to the beginning of the meeting. If you would like to come up and give public comment, I'm going to ask you to come over near Sam to state your name for the record, and then you will have 2 minutes to give your talking points. And please be careful as you come up. I do have a lot of wiring for the live stream and the cameras up here. That one is active. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just go over the rules, especially for. We're also going to do the welcoming community groups as public announcements. Some apologies. So if there's any community groups here tonight that would like to just give us a heads up about events that are coming up, we all do like to give about 30 seconds for community groups to give those announcements. Is there anybody here that'd like to give an announcement of any community group events? Yeah, please come up. Great.
Right, cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
For those on the live stream, that was Buena Park Garden Walk on July 20th. Okay. Done by Friends of Brenneman for Brenneman School. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
and then we have one more.
Just one more. I'm Shane for North Center Neighbors. We have our yard sale.
So North Center Neighbors has their garden or their yard sale this weekend, and the garden walk is the same day, June 29th. Was there any other community groups?
There's a couple of and
June 28th.
June 28th, Hutchinson Street walking tour.
Okay. We're just speaking it so people on the live stream can hear because.
This one would be buenaparkneighbors.org.
Okay, go to buenaparkneighbors.org to check the calendar. I think just as a reminder, the more active and the more involved we are in community, the more safe and the more connected we are. So thank you very much to our neighborhood group for planning all these great activities, and we really encourage community to get out there and participate in their community.
Strong showing from Buena Park Neighbors, so thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
While we're here, I just wanted to acknowledge also that we've got, thank you to Uptown Church and Pastor Jeremy for hosting us here, another part of the community. You'll see a volunteer or a documentarian from Impact for Equity taking some photos throughout this meeting. So we're joined by them. Thank you for being here. There's some representatives from the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, JCUA. Any other community groups represented here in the room? Thresholds, yes. Thresholds is here. Sorry? And Voice of the People, a great organization here in Uptown. One North Side, we've got the Temple Shalom Social Justice Committee. Any other community groups represented? It's a pretty good showing. Not to mention our officers. We've just been joined by the captain, and we've got Sergeant Angelo from the CAPS office and Commander Gisani, who we'll hear from in a little bit.
Awesome. And to continue, just public comment. Like I mentioned earlier, 2 minutes per speaker. We're gonna do the order of speakers in a random order. We have 2 public speaker comments, but if you do want to make a public comment, you can see Anna in the back for another slip. And then again, just let everybody know we will enforce the 2-minute mark. No harassment or prohibited behavior will be tolerated. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and do my still spring is unofficially summer. It has not felt like summer, and it's not cold for it. There we go. I think it's loading. Okay, so for the first speaker, can we please have Kamala Sankara?
Yep, come on up. You're welcome to use this microphone or that one.
Hello, councilors. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that in looking at ESP, that I think that again we see issues of surveillance coming up, and I know that there's a promotion through this council of programs, including the business protection program, the city program, that promote camera use, increase lowering surveillance in communities of color. And at the same time, we want to uplift our community. I think that folks and decision makers really need to think about how we're engendering a culture of suspicion in order to secure property rights and what that means. Also, I think that what needs to be done to take an active role, combat social, business, racist, patriarchal, economic sentiment in this community. There have been faith communities and faith institutions that have been pressured by the business community to post no order in signs. That is absolutely disgusting. It's difficult. And in this case, we should all remember that Jesus was murdered by the police. And I hope that y'all will take a more active role in preparing providing competency and the kind of fellows. I see voting rights literatures on the table. That's wonderful. I think that can be thinking upon. And consider that people have the responsibility that you can't outsource this to violent prevention groups.
Thank you, Kamala. And we also have Matt Cardone.
Buena Park Neighbors. I appreciate that you brought up the homeless situation. I've had a lot of questions about that. And I wanted to say first, this is going to be a tough time for a lot of people, a lot of us. And
And I see both sides of the equation in terms of it's a growing issue, as well as I would like to see some sort of resolution. And I also see things like, so here's a little description of the things that we're hearing. One of the residents called me and said the encampments are encroaching on her yard, and now they're like within 5 feet of their home. And so, and my heart goes out to her because like she pays property taxes, and that doesn't seem quite right. And then I heard also that through Alderwoman Clay's effort that they go out and they connect with the homeless people, and that even when they're offered housing, they don't always take it. So, so I think there's an issue. And then when I see like World's Gym has been vacant for like 5 or 6 years now, I feel like it would be nice if we could offer housing, basic housing to these people rather than treat them like a problem. And I kind of think that I guess I just raised it as a question to the community, like what can we do? Can we think about ways that we can house these people without unreasonable expense?
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and continue. We're gonna actually have very few updates today. We do want to spend most of the time tonight talking about district strategic plans and having a conversation with our command staff, and then obviously our community staff, our community conversation. But we always want to give you an update on our community partnership plan. So lots of work has been being conducted against the community partnership plan, but as you can see, we actually haven't had any more completed tasks for the last month. But that is because, as many of you know, we have been working really hard on an alternative response model for parking violations, which are touched in on a lot of the different goals that we had for our CPP specifically. We're going to have more updates on that, but we are happy to announce that we do have a tentative subject matter hearing scheduled for next month, June 25th. So we're excited to be in front of the Public Safety Committee and City Council to give our ideas on our proposal. So we'll update you more as that progresses. The other thing that we wanted to touch on is that the conversation tonight is around district strategic plans, and that we have a couple of goals related to the district strategic plans in the CPP. Specifically, we have work with Commander Sean Down on plan to increase foot patrol within the 19th police district's capacity, and also work with command staff to identify changes and resources needed to have beat officers conduct patrols across business districts at a regular, consistent cadence. So, as you can see, there are things that are going to ladder up to the conversation today that are within our district strategic plans. All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick off the conversation tonight with the DSP process.
All right, I can go ahead and get started with this. First of all, just to show of hands, who heard of the district strategic plan before coming to this meeting? All right, about half I'm seeing, maybe a little bit less in the room. We printed a few copies of it, but this is a copy of the 2025 district strategic plan that was put out for the 19 police districts. And district strategic plans are designed to be plans that outline a district's core crime reduction strategies and community engagement goals over the course of a year. They're intended to be developed in tandem with the community, and the current process and output that we have with district strategic plans was put together through and established by a CPD policy and is also governed by certain reforms that are under the consent decree. And there's, for those of you who want to take a look at sort of the governing document for where this comes from, we've cited the special order SO2-03-02 with a link to it so that you can see what a CPD policy looks like and how it is implemented for this particular plan. So it's not a super old policy or process that's been in place. The DSP process was launched in 2021 as a way for the community to participate in annual district priorities. And the goal is to meaningfully include the community in the process, to build public safety, to build community trust, and to build accountability. And DSPs are also designed to help enforce resource allocation as well within a police district. Yeah.
So specifically on how they get made, I don't know if many of you, have you guys heard of the community conversations that happen in October at the police station often? Has anybody attended those? So there are two community conversations, and for those on the live stream, it was about 2 or 3 hands up. There are two community conversations that occur either at the police station or public spaces like Truman, that are centered around the priorities that we would like to see CPD focus on in our district. Those both happen in October. So they take that first conversation, they establish a plan overview. Then we have a second conversation about 2 weeks after that first one, and then finalize plans with the plan published later in that first quarter of the following year. So in October of 2024, we had these community conversations. In the first quarter of 2025, that's when the strategic plan was developed, published, and posted online. As you can see, there are several parties involved with creating the district plan. So listed here is the Bureau of Patrol, the Area Deputy Chief, the OCP Commanding Officer, District Commanding Officer, and then the DAC, which is District Advisory Committee Chair. I'm glad to, as Sam mentioned, we have Commander Giussani here tonight, and along with Captain Forbes and Sergeant Angelo, so really excited to get into a few Q&As. But as you can see, this is very much focused on being informed by the command staff at the district, and even beyond that, with Bureau of Patrol being involved and the Area Deputy Chief as well. So we have also been told that the district plans are updated at a quarterly basis and then again posted online. Unfortunately, we did not see any updates last year for 2024. We have not seen an update for 2025 as we are currently in second quarter. But that's one of the things that we're trying to investigate today is it because of the process? Is it broken? Is there a better way of doing that? But as of now, as the policy is written, quarterly plans are supposed to be updated. Plans are supposed to be updated on a quarterly cadence, as the policy currently states.
Before I move on to the next slide, which kind of goes into a little bit about our 19th district strategic plan, does anyone have any questions about like the overview of what district strategic plans are? We call them DSPs because it's a mouthful to say.
I cannot say it. That's what I do.
Does anyone have any questions about what we've presented so far? We just want to make sure everyone's on the same page and we're clear about what these are supposed to be and how they work.
That's a great segue.
That's what we're getting to next. So I'm glad you asked. So the district strategic plans are really broken into two parts. The first part is the crime priorities, the problem-solving priorities they call them. And those they gather from the community conversations alongside what we can talk. We'll both share some more about how we gather what the top priorities are. For our district strategic plan listed this year, where robberies were first, burglaries are second, and shootings are third. So they have it's a couple pages for each one, and the pages break down. They talk about robberies, the rationale, and the problem analysis. So they kind of explain the underlying issues that contribute to the robberies, what their response strategies will be, so how they're going to address it, and also how they're going to work with other community entities to address that particular priority. And then the last thing is the assessment plan. So how the process and impact will be measured. And lots of times right now, it's just very general, like we will see a decrease in robberies or a decrease in burglaries or a decrease in shootings. So that is the first part of the DSP is the crime priorities. The next part is the community engagement priorities. It lists the different engagement activities that they'll be participating in throughout the year with different populations, including youth, older adults, businesses, domestic violence, and affinity groups. And that is mostly done through our CAPS office. The CAPS office, which is our community,
Chicago Alternative Policing Strategy.
Okay.
Did I get that right? Okay.
They do a lot of the community policing right now for the district. I know we'll be talking about this more later as well, but CPD is really looking to kind of change up mentality in Chicago and have every police officer be a community policing officer. But anyway, right now we have officers who are dedicated to these specific affinity groups: the youth, older adults, businesses, domestic violence, and other affinity groups. And they list different events that they will participate in throughout the year to engage those individuals. So that might be things like you guys have heard of, I'm sure, like senior bingo nights or the DARE program or officer friendly. They have things in our These are the events listed in ours. Also, Senior Safety Seminar, Senior Citizen Law Enforcement Academy, Business Law, which is another thing that I know the CAPS office does quite often, domestic violence safety workshops, and hate crime seminars.
So why are we having this conversation tonight? And part of that has to do with how our district council interacts with all of the other district councils in the city of Chicago, and how we interact with the CCPSA, or the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. As I'm sure most of you are aware, because you're very attentive and civically engaged people, but just in case if you need a refresher, there are 22 police districts in Chicago. Each of them now has an elected 3-person council. By city ordinance, all of the councils meet together at least 4 times a year, and they meet to discuss trends and priorities and public safety issues that, we could share learnings and trends that go beyond the borders of our own district and learn from other districts as well. It's a very diverse city. And one of the issues that we, I think, as a group have identified is that the district strategic plans, while they exist, while they are there, they are, to be frank, not a very comprehensive or that useful of a document right now. And this is no shade to our officers who are working very hard every day to do the work of policing. But from a public accountability standpoint, it's one of the only documents we have written down what our police officers in our district are doing. And that's the same for district councils throughout the city. And the community engagement process for creating the district strategic plans, at least in my own experience, has been pretty disappointing. There's these 2 meetings that Aurelio mentioned that happen at the end of the year. They're in person, which is great that you're all here, but it's obviously hard for people to make an in-person meeting. So extra kudos to you for being here in person. But the district councils throughout Chicago wanted a way to improve this process, to understand what goes into it, and then to report that up to the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, which is a 7-member body that has policy-making authority over the police department writ large. And we made, as one of our duties, a priority for the CCPSA to overhaul this DSP process. So we are participating in something that district councils throughout the city of Chicago are doing this month and last month and a little bit into the following month. We're gathering information about what the process currently looks like, what it's like from the perspective of the officers who are leading our police district, and what the community would like to see in an improved process going forward, so that we can make recommendations to the commission, and the commission can work with CPD to create a newer policy that builds on what is already working and makes the process work better. So the conversation that we're about to have tonight is a Q&A for us to gather information, for you to gather information about what the current process looks like, and then for us to gather information from you from conversations that we'll break out into after we hear from our officers about what you'd like to see in this process going forward. And some of the opportunities that have already been identified through some of the conversations we've had and that other district councils have had are here on this slide here that we're sharing, which includes increasing awareness of the plan to begin with, facilitating accountability and follow-through, making sure that the goals that it lays out are things that are measurable, that you can measure progress against, and they're not vague or hard to understand. Strengthening community engagement and input. As I mentioned, there are only really 2 meetings in a year where there's a structured way to give input into the plans as they exist right now. There's also CAPS meetings throughout the year. What ways can we do to increase the ability to have meaningful community engagement in this plan? We want to improve the content of the plan and make sure that the goals are something that can be easily understood, and increasing readability and accessibility. This document, while impressive, is 23 pages long, and it's hard for even the 3 of us to get through. And we ran for this office. We also want to be able to measure and track progress towards goals and promote transparency for what our police department is doing, and making sure that it reflects the goals and priorities of the community.
Just wanted to present one other community policing initiative that the Chicago Police Department has. It's called Chicago Neighborhood Policing Initiative. and they have a model that is kind of parallel to the DSPs, and just wanted to, as we're thinking about how we can make this model better, just wanted to present another model that some districts have. We in our districts that do not have NPI officers. They're called community CBO. No, they're called DCOs.
District Coordinating Officers.
Gosh, I am really not on my game with the acronyms today. But they were in their process. They were in smaller meetings. They identified priorities from the community, and in those meetings, they proposed different actions. Like, let's say I've been to meetings in the 19th district where people were upset about cars that were driving through alleys because of like a Uber type of situation. And so they were identifying priorities of issues to address in those meetings, proposing different actions that they could take to address those issues. Next to the actions, they were listing the barriers that went with that would come across with the actions. And then they would, from that conversation, they would select which actions they wanted to take, as well as who was going to follow up with those actions. And if there's any events that needed to be planned, like a lot of there was canvassing or different types of events that needed to happen in order to follow up with those actions, they would list the date, the location, the host, and the contact information, and the desired outcome, and any collaboration needed. And one other thing that I think NPI does really well, and I think it's something to consider as we can go to the next slide. Sorry. As we continue to think about what community policing looks like in our neighborhoods, is really knowing what resources are in your community. So as you're establishing these plans, you can think about who are the best resources that we can draw on to address these issues. We have so many amazing resources in the 19th district. And, I know for us, it's really important to help make sure that we connect community with the right resources. So it's not only and always a police response, but so that the people have what they need so that their police aren't needed in many of the situations.
And I think one thing I want to clarify is that we did mention this is 23 pages long. A lot of the components that Jenny just talked through are sometimes present. It's just not really in a format in which we can easily identify and then help CPD, even as district counselors, to get over some of those barriers. So I personally feel that there's a opportunity to streamline what is in this DSP so that we could all better understand it, as Sam has mentioned before.
Yeah, and also just again going back to the slide about increasing awareness. Like, there are so many opportunities. I think we would love your ideas on how we can make sure. Like, we have you saw the 5 steps, right? Once the plan is finalized and published, there's no real follow-up with the community afterward. So, like, how can we make sure that we're getting the word out to community so that they see that, oh, what I talked about in those 2 meetings is now a part of this plan, and like I'm seeing the action from it. So we're wanting to, in our next, after we hear from we want to talk to the command staff a little bit about what it looks like from their end, so that you guys can get a better understanding of that, and then break into these smaller groups and really talk and think about how we could make this really meet the needs of community.
Go ahead, Mike.
Robbery, violent crime, they have their ideas of what I don't see a complete connection that I'm seeing now. But this is extremely challenging. Are we going to cover this with the police tonight?
Tonight is about the process, so in which these are developed, not necessarily the content that's within them. So earlier, Jenny did cover what the content that's in the current district strategic plan. The thing is, we want to understand how those were formed, how the community was engaged, how district counselors can be helpful in developing these strategic plans, and then most importantly, understanding how we can facilitate the update and the progress made towards those DSPs. So while your question is, are we going to talk about the content? We have them here for reference. We're not going to dive into each specific point on what it's covering. What Jenny did say is that the ultimate 3 priorities for our 19th district is addressing robberies, burglaries, and shootings in the district. It's very good data. It is dense, as you mentioned. It's about 20 pages, deep. So we want to understand, okay, how do we distill this information that's in here and then communicate it back to the community in a way that's easy and digestible. Well, I'm glad you find it not difficult, but I as a district counselor, I find it very difficult trying to sift through this strategic plan and understand how it's updated on a quarterly basis and how we can help as community get over some of these barriers.
Well,
go ahead.
And just the last thing about that, there's ways to get the information that's on the district strategic plan, like the crime data is available on several different websites that we can link you to as well if you want to get that information.
The comment, I think everyone should be aware of the fact that what we see here is only the tip of the iceberg. The vast majority of crimes are not reported. Many thefts are now reported. Auto thefts, insurance, the reason, theft crimes for obvious reasons, but shootings are usually reported at all. Burglaries are often not reported. The crime is far, far more. Unless we know what's really going on the street, it's hard to deal with the situation.
And the commander will get into this, but this is inclusive of reported crime, 911, 311 data, but also what you, your neighbors bring to beat meetings. So those conversations are logged. So while something may happen and not get reported, you do have the ability as a community member to go to your beat meetings and say, hey, I've been seeing this, it's going unaddressed. And then that can get included in the strategic plan as well. So we're going to move into our conversation, but I did want to just lay down some ground rules before we do get into our Q&A with the command staff. The command staff Q&A tonight is between the district counselors and the command staff themselves. We made the conscious decision not to open it up to the community so that we can keep this very focused on specific questions that we have, again, related to the process of developing and updating the strategic plans. We will have a community conversation session right after this, and command staff is welcome to join us in our breakout groups. But right now, what we are going to witness is just a Q&A between the 3 of us and the 3 command staff folks that have agreed to join us tonight. So I just want to take a moment and let that sink in with everyone. So with that said, I would love to introduce and welcome to the stage Commander Giussani, Captain Forbes, and Sergeant D'Angelo.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm gonna pass the wireless mic to you guys.
Everybody can hear me, right?
Oh, you know what? Can we get you just things for the live stream then?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just clipping one of these. There you go. All right. You should be able. This one also works.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just get the screen off for right now so we can all focus on the conversation. But we have a few questions for the command staff that we've written up. But before we even get into that, Commander, Captain, Sergeant, I would love it if you guys could just take a couple minutes to introduce yourselves.
All right, good evening, everybody. Being Commander of the district. First of all, we're really outstanding. Thank you for having us. Appreciate everybody being out here. Going your time to let us know how we can work together and definitely do better. Pastor Jeremy, thank you for opening your doors and having us over here. Look forward to the conversation. Good evening. I'm Terry Forbes. I'm the captain of the 19th district. I've been here for about 2 years. Happy to be here and work with the community to solve some problems.
Hey, how we doing? D'Angelo, Cap Sergeant, 19th district. Glad to be here. Glad to be on this side of the microphone. Usually I'm just in the crowd with all of you, so it's going to be fun to engage with everybody and find out where we could be doing better with something.
All right, thanks again for joining us. Our first question, how does the district prepare for community engagement for developing the TSPs? I mentioned community conversations and I also mentioned meetings today. I'm just curious if you guys can touch on exactly how you prepare for community engagement when it goes into developing these TSPs specifically.
So I'll speak to that. I mean, that's a loaded question as to how we come about. Before I forget, I just want to recognize Andre from Alderwoman plays off the stuff being here. When it comes to picking the priorities or the topics or how we put stuff together, it's not something that we just look at where violent crime takes, because obviously we look at the numbers, we'll look at the trends. We throughout the year, the emails that the CAPS offices get, the neighborhoods that we have conversations with through our events, the feed meetings, when we hear stuff, because again, not everybody's available to come to every single meeting. I understand a lot of rooms in person. We're going to continue to push to see if we can open up on Zoom, so this way we can get more participation, both throughout the meetings, throughout the events, through the alders offices. Because we hear a lot from them, especially the public safety directors, of what you guys are calling the alders. Hold their feet to the fire, just like everybody's holding their feet to the fire. They say, hey, we elected you, just like they're calling us, hey, we put you in position, what are you doing about it? So they do reach out to us and let us know, hey, this is the latest complaint, this is the latest trend we're seeing. So when we look at it, as a whole. Like I think we had up there burglaries, robberies, and shootings. If you look at the past 2 years, those have changed. Commercial burglaries in the last year, they shot through the roof because of all the trends that we've seen throughout the city. A few years ago, that wasn't the case. There's actually car jammings. If you guys saw on the news when we had the Kias and the Hondas, those were up on the list. But as soon as those come down, they don't disappear. They might not just be part of the top 3 based on the complaints we're seeing here in the 19th district. The news you might hear citywide as to what's going on, but we kind of focus on what's going on here. We'll hear from you guys. Doesn't mean that the top 3 are there. There might be other stuff, motor vehicle tests. I think somebody brought up earlier, or thefts from vehicles. We're still working on this. But we look at the numbers, see how many things are happening throughout the beats, and let's say we'll be like, okay, the beat officers can handle those, or the watch can handle that. It won't be in the top 3, but it's not something that we're completely saying we're not going to work at. We are, but we need to prioritize when it comes to us requesting resources. Let's say from the deputy chief's office, or from the chief of patrol's office, from citywide, that we need more personnel here to basically concentrate on those. When it comes to outside of the top 3, it's basically what do we have in the 19th district that we can go and focus on, work with the alders, work with the community organizations. So that's where our top 3 come from. We do look at crime trends. We do look at the violence numbers that come in. We look at the percentages. We look at the number of 911 calls. You'll hear from the BPs. Call 911, call 911, call 911. It's just another tool that we have to understand what you guys are saying that's important to you. What is it that you guys care about that's going on? Again, we might not hear from people all the time. 911 might be the best way because it's like, okay, I can get to it, might not be able to get to a meeting, call your alderman's office or alderman's office, call 911, let us know what the problems are. I think somebody had mentioned earlier, not all the time is somebody speaking about what's going on. A lot of crime goes unreported. That's where BP meetings come in. That's where the one-on-one conversations come in. That's where the events come in. We encourage, whichever way you can get us the information, please reach out, let us know what's going on. When we say we're short on manpower, and I've said this before, the last time we were in a meeting, we're not short on manpower. If you look at the 19th district, the number of groups that we have working here, the community, how much they care about their neighborhoods, how much you guys support the police, how much you guys support the organizations, we have manpower. You guys are our eyes and ears. So when we say we're short, we might be short of responding and stuff, but we're not short on manpower or resources. We have you guys to let us know what's going on in your communities and your neighborhoods. If you're our eyes and ears, please let us know. Let us know what's going on, what's important to you, what do you want us to work on. You might not make it up on the district strategic plans, but it's not something that we're going to say we're not going to work on. We'll continue to work on it, but we just need to work together. Hopefully that answered a little bit about the district strategic plan.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
I really appreciate that answer. And it sounds like what I'm hearing is, for the formal district strategic plan process, there are these 2 conversations that happen at the end of the year. But what I'm hearing from that answer is there's a lot of touch points that happen all the way throughout the year, from looking at crime trends on a regular basis, analyzing 911 calls, hearing from beat meetings, hearing from what complaints are coming into all their people's offices. I guess a couple of follow-ups from that. One is that's a lot of different touch points. How do you what process do you have to synthesize that into what the biggest priorities are? And my second question is, how do you balance what the sort of retroactive, these are the complaints we're getting now or got in the past. For instance, last year, commercial burglaries went way through the roof. This year, they're way down. How do you figure out what the next priority should be?
So even though we have quarterly updates for the district strategic plan, for beat meeting, what we do is every 30 days, how we gauge is every 30 to 60 days, depending on how often the beat meeting is. We give the updates, and Sergeant Engel can touch on this, where the district strategic plan
what the numbers are looking like, what we've been concentrating on, if we're still continuing on an uptrend on certain crimes, or if we're actually going down, if the resources and deployments are working, obviously get feedback from you. But just because we put something out on paper that this is what we're working on, we don't strictly concentrate on those. We're continuously, every week, we're having our technology or NCSC meetings, that's our camera systems. We look at the numbers, we look at the camera feeds, we look at the 911 calls coming in. We do it on a weekly basis. Daily, we do look at every night, we do get reports every day to see what happened the night before. But on a weekly basis, we are looking at whether it's 1914 speed, 1913, 1925. What happened the week before? Was crime up the week before? How did it look 14 days before that, 28 days before that? We're looking at comparisons, and we're not just doing it this current year. We're looking at year to date. We're looking at year over year. We'll go back to say, okay, 2 years ago, this was not a problem in this peak. Why is it a problem now? At the beginning of the year, we were up maybe 2% in this crime, but now we're looking at an equal, we're up 30%. What changed? So we have to constantly evolve with it, look at the numbers continuously. We might just report out quarterly, or let you know what's going on in the feed. But internally, we are continuously looking at those numbers, seeing the feedback that we get from you guys, but we have to look at it on a weekly basis at a minimum to understand that the resources, the manpower that we're deploying and the missions we're running are working. If they're not, if it looks like the crime trend's still going up, then we need to change our strategy, which could be focused on. It could be more officers, on the feed. It could be putting a camera up somewhere, who wasn't there before. What do we need to do? Get the community organizations, or even come to the district council and the alderman's offices or alderman's office and say, this is what's going on. This is where we need your help. We are constantly having those meetings, and we're constantly looking at numbers to see how we need to update ourselves. So it's not just every quarter. We're looking at least a weekly basis.
Thank you.
So it seems like this is like a really dynamic process on what you guys use in order to assess where this, the priorities should be. My question is then as far as this kind of static district strategic plan document, how do you interact with that? What about it as we as a community and district councils are looking to make improvements? I'm curious what about it is most helpful to you, and then also where room for improvement on the process and the product.
There's always room for improvement. Understand when we're police officers, we'll get everywhere. We try to be doing our job. Not necessarily putting stuff on people when it comes to updating slides and doing all of that stuff. So it's always a work in progress for us, but that's where you guys come in. We got outreach to the community. You guys are doing community, whether it's online or in person. What helps us the most is feedback. If we don't get feedback from the community, whether like I said, whether it's communicating or one calls, we don't have anything to update. So we just continue with it. Nobody reported crime, so we're thinking it's just problem or it went away. That kind of changes our weekly basis as to what we're doing. What helps us most is feedback. We want to go into the days where we have 0 911 calls. There's no reason for you to call. But in this day and age that we live, the more we hear from you, the better it is for us. The more calls we get, the more understanding we have of what's going on in your block, in your beat, in your neighborhood, what's important to you guys. But again, working with you guys, trying to get out there, trying to get the information back of how we can work. We would love to have meetings every single day if we would. But then we wouldn't be able to concentrate what was going on in the district and all this stuff. But that's why we have all the people's offices. We have council to help us. But not only that, try to filter. Again, I think somebody mentioned, I don't know, 23 pages, but I know the district's plan, it's pretty long. We'll put everything in paper. We have our metrics on there. But trying to explain it sometimes in layman's terms, we kind of lose our way because we have our own terms of the way we talk. We just need somebody else that speaks the language to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on. So that would help us a little bit as far as moving goes. 90 days is nice that you get the quarterly updates. Again, we do a weekly, so the 90 days doesn't make a difference to us. What I would like to see is more input every 30 days, at least, from the VPs. So this way we're not waiting 90 days to change. We're hearing from you, but we're giving it long enough time to see the certain mission, the certain deployment is working. So we give it 30 days to see when the metrics come in. 90 days is too long to be able to give you an update. It might give you a picture, snapshot what's going on throughout the year, but to be able to give you updates every 30 days at these meetings would help us to get feedback a lot.
So touching on feedback, I'm curious as to how you look at the DSPs along the year and evaluate assessment. Because I talked about how certain crime statistics in one beat is going to go up versus one is going to go down in the other. So how do you take a look at the DSP at the overall level, but then also address improvements or assessment at a beat by beat level.
So when it comes to the DSPs, again, that's just something that we publish, so you guys have an update, so you guys have an update. Like I said, we have a weekly meetings. So by the time the 90-day time frame even comes up for us to update the DSP, we've already been meeting every week and making our adjustments, understanding which way crime is going, which way the trends are going. So it's not like we have to prepare for it to be like, all right, this is what we're gonna change. Going into the 90 days, we already know what changes we made, what we're gonna make and where we're standing. 90 days is just something more publishing for you guys. It's something that we've already had 8 or 9 meetings on and have already adjusted according to the metrics.
And I did want to focus on that for the community. It's just, it feels like we're completing paperwork from a retroactive perspective, and we've had efforts from CPD in our district addressing these high priority items that you've come to in beat meetings, or you've called your alders for, or you've called 911 for. So when we talk about the process and we have 23 pages to read through and understand what our police are working on, and Sam, Jenny, welcome your thoughts here. It just feels like we're looking at something from the past. And is that really the best document for us to be having to evaluate how CPD is, functioning in our community, and are the issues that we want addressed actually being addressed in the ways we want them? And maybe the answer is yes. You guys haven't. There's no question there, but I was just thinking out loud and for the benefit of the community, because this is something that you and I touched on in our meeting last week, and I think it's really interesting that we're talking about something that is meant to be community facing, but then becomes static the moment it's published.
And just to add on that, I mean, I want this process to be something that's useful for the community. I also would like it ideally to be useful for the police in communicating to the community and also in articulating what their goals are for a given amount of time. I also think that we are in this process right now of having these conversations where we can have the opportunity to reimagine what this looks like. The DSP program, as we've laid it out so far, has been in place for a few years, but that was put in place before district councils were created, before we were elected, before this new structure of community engagement and liaison between the community and police was put in place. So we can think through ways as well to improve how that communication of goals and progress toward those goals takes place. And I guess a question that I would have for you all is, how could district councils assist district commands in making this process, whether it's an annual document or one that's every 90 days or something that's a little structured differently? How can we help integrate district councils in making that more of a success?
I'm just kind of wondering if you got any questions for Anthony.
If you're getting tired, we got you.
No, so I'll answer that. I'm a
What views on that?
I'm a simple person. I just want to do the job. I want to be able to communicate and work in the community, get to know everybody, all this stuff. And we want to be able to get feedback. That's how I look. But if one of the avenues that's preferred is putting it down on paper, which is the DSP, that is something we'll do. But I think that's where you would help us. Again, we can put pen to paper, we can put metrics, we can put all this other stuff. I prefer this, the communications, talking to people, going out to events, seeing the actual neighborhoods, seeing what's going on there, and actually being there, and not just seeing it on paper. We can put all the numbers down. If you guys can help us actually explain some of those numbers, and try to get more participation. We've obviously tried, I'll let Sergeant Angel talk about the community meetings, beat meetings, events that we do, and just gaining more participation. We know there's more people out there that care about the community, that live in the neighborhoods, that want to say something, but unfortunately sometimes just whether it's a schedule, obligations, family events or whatever may be going on. How do we make it easier to hear more from them? If it's not in person, if it's not team, how do we make it more convenient? How do we get more participation? If they can't come to us, how do we go to them? How do we make this easier and give more? That's what I would, like I said, I'm a simple person. I'd rather just talk to somebody and let you know what we're doing, get feedback from you, take it back, talk to the officers. That's why even when we talked about foot patrol, we're increasing, we're definitely increasing bike patrol. We'll base foot patrol based on the events that are going on in the district. which we have a majority of the events that go on in the city of Chicago over here outside of downtown. So when we can, we're definitely, and I'm a big proponent of get out, talk to people, again, and start with like the same thing. We like being out there talking to businesses. Sometimes you hear more one-on-one than you can at some different meetings or even through a 911 call. It's easier to have that conversation because you're actually talking to somebody. It's easier to build up the trust when you're talking to somebody. It's hard to do that over the phone. It's hard to do it in team. I understand we're looking for more participation. I still like that in-person one-on-one conversation because it's easier to explain. Through text, through emails, sometimes it's just, the message might be misconveyed. It might be read wrong, depending on who you're in or what I'm in, depending on how, the words were typed. It's easier to have that conversation in person. So that's where we would need your assistance to say, okay, yes, DSP, like we put up the code, but we're not looking at it every 90 days. But we're actually looking at it daily, if not on a weekly basis. Which again, if we're doing this and we're updating numbers to update the community, to update the neighborhoods and the leads and facilitators, they should understand the process. They should understand what goes into it, and not just looking at percentages or how crimes change. We want to show them everything, not just one particular thing that we're showing you. Like, hey, I can sit here right now and tell you, hey, crime's gone down in 18th district 43%. That's a last meeting. I can have one person in here that was a victim of a crime, but crime for them's up 100%. So the 46% to me doesn't matter. The percentages don't matter. What it comes down to is having a conversation. How do you feel in your community? How do you feel in your house? How do you feel down your block? How can we change that? Percentages are all good. I'm not a big thing of, hey, what's more down? It's a good metric to let you know issues have gone down, burglaries have gone down. Our burglaries compared to last year have gone down close to 78%. But the businesses that were affected this year, how do you continue? That's where we got to connect to get more information and let them know we are working. But that's where just the communicating and the updating and how do we get more.
No, thank you for that. And before I move to the last question, because we do want to get to our community conversation, and maybe this is, for each of you guys. Before I get to the last question for each of you, I also want to make sure that everyone, the reason that the district councils were created is to be liaisons, and I do want to recognize that there are some folks out in the community that do not want to interact with the police, and that's why we're here as well. So this is an avenue in which we can enroll all community members, and we're happy to do that. And I think I can speak on behalf of Sam and Jenny. We're looking forward to working with you on these strategic plans so that it's something that's beneficial to you in the department, to us as district councilors, and most importantly for the community. So we're really looking forward to getting into the nitty-gritty and making this process something that works for us. And then lastly, I guess, last question for each of you. It's what questions or asks do you have for the community in improving the DSP in the process and DSPs overall?
I've said my piece.
Yeah, with the strategic plan, in the title, strategic is a big overview of everything. We're not looking granularly at small problems with the strategic plan. We're looking at the big top three, what's the major things affecting the district over a long-term process. That's strategic. Tactically or regularly, we're looking at the other crimes on the data, and that stuff gets updated weekly. That the department publishes for every district. What are the crime stats for that district? So I think part of with the strategic plan, we need to look at. We're not looking at the day-to-day changes with the strategic plan. We're looking at a year-long process. These are our top three when we started the year between the community decision and the police department. What are we doing with those plans? That's going to change throughout the year. It's going to change weekly, daily sometimes, and those stats are published by the department, like I said, every week what's happening. So those are going to change the strategic plan and the data over time. But again, the day-to-day crimes, the weekly crimes are going to be different than the strategic plans. They're going to affect the strategic overall plan, which is a huge overview. But the day-to-day data is going to be different than the strategic plan. At the end of the year, quarterly, that data will be added up, analyzed, and then it might change the strategic plan, but you're not going to see changes immediately daily with strategic. That's the crime data. All right, so to break it down and going back to academia, if you look at the strategic plan as a syllabus, okay, that's your layout for that school. Your midterms are your quarterly updates. The pop quizzes on what's going on In between those midterms are your beat meetings. Okay, where we analyze the beat itself and what's going on according to the plan and what's affecting the plan within those meetings. So, through those interactions and through using that strategic plan throughout the year, we get a better gauge of what we need to do and how we need to pivot for the following year. So it's not just the 2 community conversations. That's like a summary of what happened during the year that affected you and your community. The points that we have are the signal information we get from the community at the beat meetings, through the alderman's offices, through the neighborhood groups in the district, is everything else that kind of formulates where do we need to pivot for the following year. It all goes into that creation, when we have our sit-down meetings with the district, hierarchy and the DAC, the district community counselors and beat facilitators and everything. So there's, a constant change in building towards that next school year, if you will. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So that's kind of why it's static at the start, but it's adjusted. And even if you look at like our changes that we're making within the quarterly, we might have an area set up for our burglaries or our robberies based on the data coming in, the information from tactical officers and beat officers, the information coming in from the community. Those parameters get adjusted, and we move forward. And you'll get that update then at your beat meeting and again in the quarterly update as a sort of midterm report. That makes sense? Okay. Cool. Yeah, but you went to college. You went to
Well, with that, we're going to conclude our Q&A. I just want to ask for a round of applause for Commander Gisani, Captain Forbes, and Sergeant Angelo. I will say that, we attend district council meetings on a quarterly basis, and I am really happy to say that we have a really great working relationship with command staff at 19, so I really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to making some progress on making these district plans better for everybody. So, again, thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, we so appreciate the relationship that you have established with us, and the lines of communication that you kept open.
Thank you.
You can just let something on the table.
Thank you.
So the next part of the meeting tonight is to be breakout groups and community conversations. So we can break out into 3 groups. You guys good with 3 groups? Sure.
I think Anna can do it too.
Okay, we'll probably do 4 because Anna's gonna help us facilitate. So we can do each corners of the room. We can take the back right corner up here. There's a great little section that no one's sitting at right now. We can take over. And then the 3 of us plus Anna on our team is we're going to serve as facilitators. 3 can help distribute, and then that could be note-taking devices for you. But then we will take some time maybe to come back up here, depending on how much time we have, just to reiterate and summarize everything we've talked about tonight. For those folks on the live stream, I am going to share my screen yet again, and we're going to go ahead and give you a QR code so that you can participate. So if you are on the live stream, please feel free to scan this QR code and submit your answers to the 3 questions we will be asking. But again, if you're here in person, we're going to break out. It covers those exact 3 questions. Anything I forgot before we move on?
Any questions before we break out?
Any questions before we break out? All right, so like I said, 1 group in the back, up here in the front, left, and then I will take another group over here as well. So, looking forward to the conversations.
I'm going to give you some papers.